I started to feel kind of sick, so I was getting really bad headaches in the back of my head. My mom gets tension headaches all the time, so I thought that's what it was. I got up one Sunday morning and was trying to get ready and almost passed out. So it passed, I sat on the ground for a second and I was fine, so I got up and finished getting dressed. And by the time I got to the top of the stairs, it started to happen again. And I went and told my mom. We go over to the Murray Hospital. They put us in a room and they drew my blood. And then this doctor came in and was like, okay, I want to let you know you have leukemia. I'm Jeff Thomas, good childhood, had really great parents. I was the oldest of 4. I was also the oldest cousin on each side of my family, so oldest grandchild. Family's always been a huge part of my life. I had no idea at the time what leukemia was. I mean, I obviously knew it was a form of cancer. I knew cancer was bad. They were telling me, we're like 98% sure it's in its lowest phase, but we're pretty confident that we're gonna be sending you home within the week and just have you on this medication and you'll just take that indefinitely. So they got back to me with news that it was way more advanced than they had thought. Things started to decline pretty quickly. I started to have some trouble breathing. I started to get really high fevers. They couldn't get my fevers to break. And I ended up in the ICU. And eventually I went completely out and I had lung failure. I couldn't go in a helicopter because my body couldn't have dealt with the change in pressure. They had the life flight team, like the helicopter team, meant to save a life, but I was in an ambulance. And so while I was riding there in an ambulance, they intubated me. It was like this for over a week. I was intubated, and I was essentially feeling myself dying. Like I knew I wasn't gonna make it much longer. Yeah, it was horrible. It was the worst week of my life. At this time, they were knowing they were gonna need to do a bone marrow transplant. And my family's amazing, all my siblings are amazing. Every single one of them immediately volunteered to be tested to donate. So both my brother, Jake, and my sister, Sarah, were half matches. But my youngest sister, Sadie, who was 13 at the time, was a perfect match. She was super brave as a young kid and decided that she wanted to do this for me. And so I am obviously extremely grateful because she gave me back my life in that way. I finished up that stay in the hospital, so I did my rounds of chemo and got through the worst of the chemo side effects. They had got me to a point where they're like, this would be at least somewhat manageable at home. I was past my 100 days, so I could go out and be around other people. My immune system was back up and working. My hair was starting to grow back. The beginning of October is actually when I met my wife, Zoe. It was kind of an interesting thing dating right after all of this because I didn't really know, you don't want to just walk up the first time you meet a girl and be like, I have leukemia. But like, that's also something really important for them to know if they're gonna date you. She knew that, and I was not looking my best. I like to think it was like a long-term investment. Hopefully I've gotten handsomer over time since she started dating me. Fast forwarding kind of then, so we dated throughout, starting in October, dated all the way through Valentine's Day of 2018. It was when I proposed. And then we planned our wedding and we got married in May of 2018. It was kind of the worst of times and then immediately switched to the best of times. Cancer was kind of the last thing on my mind at that point, I was able to focus on other things, which I hadn't been able to do for months and months. We both wanted a baby really bad at this point. We felt like there was that was a missing hole in our lives. They had told me when I went through my chemo and everything that there was a decent chance that I was not going to be able to father children. So we were looking into in vitro fertilization and adoption were kind of our two main things we started with. So we were trying to figure out the best option, and what we ended up learning was that if you do foster to adopt, the state will pay for the adoption for you. We probably started in June of 2020, and then we got a call on March 30th. They told us that they had a baby in like the NICU area at the University of Utah Hospital. So they asked us to come up to the hospital, and they said they didn't know the situation with the family yet. Mom had just abandoned him at the hospital, so they were trying to figure out what the whole situation was. So they were like, you may only have him for 3 days. We just started going up to the hospital every day and would hold him, and Zoe would go up right in the morning. I'd finish work and then go up. But we decided to go with Enzo. We liked the name, so we had Enzo there at the hospital, and then after a week, they said we could take him home. We got to a point at about the year mark where they started saying, okay, we're probably gonna be changing the goal to adoption pretty soon. And then at 14 months, we had a trial, and that's the trial that was the adoption trial. We had all, like a bunch of my family and friends come over, and it was virtual court. Zoe and I testified at court as to why we thought we'd be good parents to Enzo, and the judge congratulated us and ruled the adoption as official. And so it was one of the best days of my life. Really, my experiences that I went through those, 5 years ago led me to the experience of being able to do foster care and get Enzo in our home to begin with. Now I feel like I'm at a point in my life where it's definitely a lot more peaceful. We're about to move into a house. We have our son adopted officially, and I'm mostly healthy at this point. So I just feel really blessed to be where I'm at and to have gone through those things that made me who I am.